For real though, dude, Beethoven snot. Ah, and what's funny is she wanted him to. She's like, no kiss. Hell no. Who the fuck wants to kiss that? Did anyone want to kiss Beethoven when he had drool coming down the side of his fucking mouth? Why? Ah. Welcome once again, all you Fabricans and Fleshbags. It is I, Jen Thépuppét, back again with another review. We're talking this time about The Stand, Episode 2, Pocket Savior, from CBS All Access. What did I think about it? Well, let's dig in. First off, if you missed our first review, check back on the channel so you can see my thoughts on Episode 1, the end. Episode 2 follows close on the heels, of course, but this time we take a little bit of a detour of sorts. This time we're focusing on three different characters, and the three characters are Larry Underwood, Lloyd Hendricks, something like that, and Nadine Cross. Those are the three perspective characters. And of course, we get introduced to a bunch of side characters as well. Like the first episode, we see what these three characters were up to just prior to and right after the end of the world, as you will. This episode, I think actually, I would say it's really Larry's episode and a little bit more Lloyd, less so Nadine, which I think is maybe a little troubling, just because the last episode was really about Stu and about Harold, and less so about Franny. So I hope they kind of fix that up a little bit. We see from Larry and through his perspective various people that are sick and dying, and we also see what I think is an interesting, I almost want to say an oddly prescient look at the American attitude about plague or pandemic. He literally says, hey, you're real New Yorkers because you don't let a little sniffle keep you from coming out. It's oddly on the nose, and I know it's completely unplanned, but very much in the spirit of the no maskers. So we also move on and we see the fate of one Lloyd Hendricks. I want to say it's Hendricks. I always forget his last name. But we see the fate of one Lloyd Hendricks, who is a young guy, bank robber or whatever you want to call it. Notorious, apparently. They were on some kind of robbery, killing spree, whatever you want to call it, and gets caught. Literally gets caught right as the plague, Captain Trips, is taking hold of the land. There's actually something happens where an accidental shooting happens because of a sneeze that is clearly from the super flu. And he ends up going to prison. And we see from his perspective in a truly horrifying series of events. He goes from being in a cell with someone who's showing the early signs of infection to being stuck in there after they're dead and seeing bodies carted away and hearing people dying in all the cells and everything. It's just a truly horrifying, if you really think about it, a truly horrifying situation. And knowing for sure and seeing no one's coming to let you out, stuck behind bars, a slow, terrible death in your future unless you're a survivor. And Lloyd, if he is a survivor, if he's nothing else, he does some pretty awful things in order to prolong his life. And it actually, that whole bit is to say something about his character and why he goes on to do the things he does. We also see Nadine Cross. but we don't see much about her. We see something important about her that reveals something about her character that she is hiding from other people. I think that this episode, beyond just introducing us more to our characters, we get to see a few side characters, a few future important characters, but more importantly, I think further showcasing the fall of society, but more importantly, sort of highlighting how the survivors choose to deal with the trauma of seeing everyone around you die and having to move on and live on. In the case of the little kid Joe, who was clearly on his own for a while, he is non communicative, except maybe nodding or shaking his head. Larry, who was a drug addict before, is self medicating with a stash of drugs. Nadine, who knows? She's compartmentalizing. And Rita point blank says, "What's the point? Why are we doing this?" It's like, as she says, being the last people at a party. And it's kind of sad and pathetic, and what's the point of it? All of these are not necessarily healthy, but given the trauma, given the difficulty, given the state of the world, it's not hard to see why you could approach life or the situation that way. I think that the rest of the show is going to keep exploring this, but also explores how people find things to rally around because of the uncertainty and their mental states, and trying to cling to something that will give them some purpose and take their mind off of the horror of everything that's going on. A lot of The Stand seems to be about the emotional horror, the existential dread, the existential horror of almost everyone dying and having to pick up the pieces, and how hard that actually is without breaking apart yourself. This is not something that's new. The Walking Dead deals with that, other apocalyptic things, but in this case, minus the threat of zombies, there's immediately skipping to the fact that in this sort of situation, other people are the enemy, and trying to find people you can depend on and move forward with. So that is the whole idea. Why should we even keep on trying? Is, I think, something they're going to try to address moving forward into the series. Overall, I really like this episode. Actually, an improvement on the first episode, in the sense that you have been given an episode to get used to the storytelling style. They seem a little more sure-footed in the way they present the plague, the characters in the plague, how they present Boulder itself, throwing out some themes they introduce, and you get to see the man in black, so to speak, Randall Flagg, and what he's about. There's a lot of forward movement in this. There are laying some of, or planting some seeds that are going to come to fruition later. There are some mysteries introduced that need to be addressed. I was surprised Rita's story wasn't fully addressed in this particular episode. Nadine wasn't really addressed in this episode. There just is much that is still left to tell, because after all, it is only episode 2 of 9. So production values are great. Again, makeup just unbelievable. It looks disgusting, and that's the way it's supposed to. I think overall, I think this is in a good place. There's a good trajectory to the story. It's good storytelling. The changes that were made weren't, hard to swallow, and I could understand why they made the changes. And it really just leaves me And all, it just leaves me excited to see what comes next. And I'm really looking forward to the next episode. So, those are my thoughts on episode 2 of The Stand, Pocket Savior. And I'm just wondering, what the hell does Baby Can You Dig Your Man sound like? What does that song sound like? Are they ever going to give it to us to listen to? We're going to find out. I hope we're going to find out in the future. To imagine we got a pop star leading or trying to lead the people of Boulder. It had to be some no-name pop star named Larry Underwood. So, well, that's all for now. Check out, why can't I talk? That's all for now. Check out The Stand on CBS All Access if that's what you have in your country. If you don't have that in your country, I'm sure it's on Netflix or something like that. But give it a whirl. Watch the world end and a new one arise out of its ashes, and the battle for the fate of that world play out on the streaming screen. I've been Mo Thépuppét. This has been another Super Not Funny Show reviews, and we'll check you back next week to see what episode 3 of The Stand is doing. Peace.